Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics. Dio here. Today we have a 2015 Chevy Malibu with a 2.5 liter. The customer complaint is that the check engine light remains on while the engine is running. So I asked the customer if he noticed anything unusual while the check engine light came on. He said he didn't notice anything. The vehicle seems to drive fine, but only the check engine light remains on while the engine is running. So first things first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our scan tool and get inside the car and connect it to the car so we can retrieve some DTCs. So once we retrieve our trouble codes, and then we will know which directions we're gonna go to fix this car. So let's go inside the car and connect the scan tool. Alright guys, so I'm inside the car right now. The first thing I'm gonna do, we're gonna confirm the customer's complaint first. So I'm gonna start the car so we can see if the check engine light is gonna remain on while the engine is running. And as you can see, all the lights went off on the dash, but the check engine light. And as you can see right there, the check engine light remained on. So customer's complaint confirmed. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the engine off and then turn the key on so I can connect the scanner. So once I get the scanner connected, I'll bring you guys back up. Alright guys, so I got the scan tool connected to the car. So now let's scan it for some trouble codes. So let's hit the scanner tab. And this is a Chevy right here. And this is a 2015 right there. And let's auto ID it. And right there, the scan tool has identified the car. Okay. And there are a couple ways we can scan this. We can actually go to code scan. This is going to scan all the modules on the car. But I'm just interested in the engine control module. So let's just hit on engine. Let's hit the engine tab. And let's go to codes menu. DTC display codes. Let's go to DTC display. And here is the trouble code we have in memory. P2646. And the description is intake rocker arm solenoid valve 1 stuck off. Symptom 00, current DTC, test not passed since DTC cleared, test failed since DTC cleared, history DTC, test not passed since power up, warning indicator requested. So there are a couple ways we can go with this. We can hit diagnose here. It's gonna take us to the intelligent diagnostic side of the scanner, and we can look at some data feeds there. But what I want to do is I want to do this really quickly because I have a line of vehicles outside, so I need to move pretty fast so I can get to the other vehicles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back out of here and I'm going to look this code up in the troubleshooter. So let's remember the code is P2646 because we're going to get more info about this code here. Let's go to code tips. So it was P26 right here. It's not here. Let's see. Okay. Well, it looks like we do not have this code here in the troubleshooter. So what we need to do is, I know how this system works, but I want to look this up so I can show you guys the code set criteria. And so let's go. It's a Malibu. I think it's this one. I think it's limited. So now I'm going into my service information. And let's go to code. Let's go to DTCs. And hold on. Not there. I'm just gonna write code P0 No, it was P2646 right there. So now let's search this code, and right here P2646 code description. Let's click on that. So let's go to well, here we can look at the top repairs. So this is just information that Mutual has gathered for us. So, you know, when other technicians have dealt with this, here on the top repair is going to tell us what the issue could be and what the other technicians have done. And with this code, and this is the mileage of the vehicle, this vehicle has got 119,000 miles, and most people said the issue was the solenoid, replaced variable valve timing solenoid. Some people said so 60 times the issue was the rocker arm, and based on the mileage also. And as you look at this blue line here, you look at your mileage and stuff. So what we need to do is, let's back out of here again. And so this is giving us direction already. So it could be the solenoid, it could be the rocker arm, it could be. So let's go to component operation. So right here, this is the DTC description, DTC descriptors. So ours is right here, P25. I don't know why I'm always thinking about P46. P2646. So intake rocker arm valve 1 stuck off. So we have it's saying valve 1, so it looks like we have 2 valves here. And here's a condition for setting the DTC. So the ECM detects the rocker arm actuator system is stuck on or off by comparing cylinder head oil pressure sensor signals when switching the variable valve lift to high and low. So it looks like this system right here is the system that the computer uses to change the intake valve's lift. So if it wants to open the valves a little bit longer, or if it wants to increase the lift, the ECM actuates the solenoid, and then in return it looks at the signal from the oil pressure switch to know if the actuation has taken place. And here are the condition, and this is done for, you know, emission purposes, engine performance purposes, and also for EGR purposes, because this engine, I believe, doesn't have an EGR valve. So again, we can go through all this and read, you know, if you want to, our circuit/system description. This is the way it works. We can read here so we can have an idea of what's going on. So I'll read. So let's read. I shall read. Okay. So the intake valve lift control system enables the engine control module to change the camshaft lift and duration while the engine is operating. The camshaft has 3 lobes for each intake valve. The inner lobe is for low lift, and the 2 outer lobes are for high lift. The rocker arm solenoid valve controls the 2-step lift by controlling the oil flow to the rocker arm. In default mode, a locking pin locks the inner and outer mechanisms of the rocker arm together to provide high lift. When low lift is commanded, oil pressure retracts and locking pin within the rocker arm. So I'm reading right here, guys. So this is pretty much just telling us how this system works. And the intake valve lift control system has rocker arm solenoid valves that are controlled by the engine control module ECM. The rocker arm solenoid valves are supplied ignition volts and a ground circuit to each solenoid. the ECM operates the rocker arm solenoid valves by controlling the ground circuit to each solenoid in order to, I think it's in order to, right here, this blue dot here is kind of in the way. I think it's in order to control the amount of oil flow and pressure to the switching rocker arms. So again, this is the solenoid that actually controls the flow. So we basically have two solenoids. There are two solenoids, like I just said. So two solenoids, and since this is a 4-cylinder engine, one solenoid controls 2 cylinders and the other one controls the other 2. And these solenoids are supplied power constantly by a fuse or a relay somewhere. We can look at the wiring diagram to find out how it's wired, and then the computer controls the ground side of this solenoid. So if the computer wants to energize that solenoid, once it energizes it, oil flow, it's pretty much just like how the variable valve timing system works. So it energizes the relay, the solenoid, and then oil flow flows from one passage to another to actually change the valve lift. So if it were on low, it would go from low to high or from high to low. And the engine does this, the ECM does this while the engine is operating. So we can back out of here. It doesn't give us the wiring diagram here. What we can do is we're just gonna go straight to the solenoid and see if we can do some checks there. I believe it's a 3-wire solenoid. So let's back out of here and let's see OEM testing. Let's try this. Let's see if it's gonna give us some ohm values here. Again, I don't know if I mentioned this already, guys. Diagnostic work is sometimes, mostly, 70% research and 30% actually doing the work, or sometimes even 90% doing research and then 10% doing the work. So we have to get familiar with the system. We already know that this is the system that controls the intake valve lift, and I'm trying to see if we can get a resistance check. Okay, let's see. Let's do this. Rocker arm solenoid. Let me see if we can tap the rocker arm solenoid here. Rocker arm solenoid. Let's see if we'll get anything. Let's go to it's not giving us this component testing here. Okay, well, let's just look at the wiring diagram. Let's find this solenoid here. I was looking at the I wanted to look at the component testing just to see what the spec is for the solenoid, because we can do a resistance check on it, but the ohm tests can be misleading sometimes, so I don't really trust that test. You can get lucky and get a solenoid that has high resistance, and once you connect your ohm meter to it, you can see it really easily, but sometimes you can't. So let's see if we can find It's gonna be a 3-wire solenoid. Oh, right here. I think here it is. Right here. So rocker arm actuator, top right side of the cylinder head. So we have a green wire. This wire right here, this green wire goes to the green wire goes to the engine computer, apparently. So bear with me guys here, I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is our solenoid, and so the green wire, so this green wire is coming from, it's going to the engine computer right here, and it says step cam B control, and then the other one, this one right here, the violet and gray, also goes, the one I just highlighted goes also to the engine computer. So, and then the one up here, this other one, this one right here, if we follow it, I hate when it does this. Okay, so if we follow this one, if we follow this wire onto the previous page, so this one right here, so 9, so if we keep going, if we go, so that one I believe is gonna take us to a fuse. So it was 9. 9 is right here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. So 9 is right here. Oh crap. So here is 9, and it looks like it comes here and it gets spliced on this violet and blue, and then it goes across our wiring diagram. So here it becomes 6 right there, and let's go back to the previous page. So 6 here is number 6. I hope you guys are following along with me, although this kind of all over the place and it can be confusing at times. So here is number 6, and 6 goes, let me highlight it, so this one. So 6 goes right here to this fuse. So we should have power on that one wire, and then the computer is actually gonna ground the other sides of the solenoid to energize them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go under the hood and locate that solenoid first, and then we're gonna do some tests at the electrical connector. We have to make sure we have power going there, and this power here is ignition controls, ignition relay. So there should be power there with the key on or with the engine running. Alright, so I'm here under the hood. The first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna remove this engine cover. Alright, so this can be kind of tough because I am doing this one-handed and I'm holding the camera on the other hand, and I'm here by myself in the shop, so bear with me guys. So the solenoid is right back there under that intake tube. So I'm just gonna seat my cover right there, just put it aside. Let's put this oil filler cap back on. So we have a couple solenoids here. This is our variable valve timing solenoids. And oh, again, I don't know, I said that this system can also be used for EGR purposes, but no, I mean, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I lied. Not this system. The system that's used for EGR purposes is this system right here, the variable valve timing system. So these two right here. This is the intake VVT solenoid, and this one is the exhaust VVT solenoid. And this is just for valve lift, so to go from high to low, okay, or from low to high. And there's a pin here that locks it, like we just read in the code description. This here is what's get used for EGR. So if the exhaust gases want to be if the computer here decides to route the exhaust gases back into the combustion chamber, it actually opens the valves to allow, you know, a certain percentage of exhaust into the combustion chamber to cool down the cylinder temperature. So here is our solenoid. So we're gonna focus on this, and if you guys can see, there are a couple passages right here. So these two solenoids here, so there are oil passages here. So if one solenoid opens, it allows oil to flow from this passage up here, which will eventually adjust the valve lift. So there's one here and there's another one here. So we have two solenoids, as you guys can see up there. These are solenoids. One is in control of these first two cylinders, and then the other one is in control of the last two cylinders. So what we're gonna do is we can do a couple checks. Let's make sure we have power and computer control getting to the solenoid, and then we can do a home test. And if everything checks out okay, then our issue is what? It's probably just a solenoid. So, but we're just not gonna replace the solenoid like that. We have to do some checks first, okay? So I'm gonna seat you guys around here while I remove this. All right, so I'm gonna remove this intake tube. All right, so we got that out of the way. There's another 10mm bolt back here. So we have to take that out of the way. So now I can lift it, and there's this tube here that needs to be pushed out. Right. So there's this PCV tube here that I had to disconnect. So with those two disconnected, now I can get access to our solenoid there. Alright, so I'm gonna keep this up, and then I will show you the solenoid and our wiring here. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm about to test the wiring first. I'm gonna make sure we have power here, and we also have our command coming from the computer here. So I'm gonna hopefully, let me try to hold this up while I put another light here so I can show you what I'm looking at. I don't want to take this apart. I can, but I'm gonna start it again, so I'm gonna need it. So I don't see the need to take this apart right now. So here's the solenoid right here, and here's its electrical connector. I'm just holding this up because I'm gonna have to lower it again, because the tests I'm about to do, I'm gonna do them with the engine running, so there's no need to remove this intake tube. So here's our electrical connector. I'm gonna disconnect it, and right there, it's a 3-wire connector. I mean, I see a cut on this other wire. Let me zoom you guys in so you can see. I don't like how... Do you see this wire right here? I wonder if it's broken completely. Okay, so now I'm gonna connect it back up and do some checks here. So we have to make sure that we have our power going to the solenoid and our ground. I don't think this wire is broken completely, but I will double check it. So this middle wire here should be our power supply, and then the other ones will be our control coming from that guy over there, the engine computer. I found a good spot where I can put you guys at, but so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I can get my hands out of the way as much as possible. So I got that. I got this one here. And then I'm gonna connect the other one. So what you don't want to do is, you don't want these pins to touch each other, especially the power supply to the ground. Right, so I just Alright, so I got my back probes there. So we're gonna use a lab scope. So I'm gonna bring my lab scope test lead there and connect them to those back probes. Alright, so here's what I just did. I back probed all the wires on this rocker arm solenoid. So all 3 wires. So I mean, I didn't keep track of which wire is what, so I got my green lead right here on this first wire, then my blue lead on the middle wire, and then my yellow lead on the other wire here on the right. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna put this tube back on because I'm gonna have to start it. And now I can drop this. I'm trying to do this one-handed, guys, so bear with me. All right, so I'm gonna put this tube. I'm gonna put this into. All right, good. So I back probed. All right, so I back probed the solenoid back there. You can't really see my back probes. So I have my scope wires going through here, and now I'm gonna ground this first channel here, trace. I'm gonna take this ground right here on battery ground. Right there. So alright, so I got the engine running. So now we're gonna come to the lab scope and do our test. So let's go to engine, and I'm actually gonna pull up the lab scope and the scan tool at the same time, so I can bidirectionally command the ECM to turn on and off that solenoid. So actually, let's hit my home tab first, and let's actually, to do that I have to go to guided component test and view meter, and I'm going to turn all my channels on. So I'm going to turn 3 channels on. And let's go to the 50-volt scale. Oh man, I'm so sorry for the glare here. Let me see if I can move this a little bit. Hopefully we have a lot of light here, so I'm sorry guys. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm about to do. Let's see if I can turn it around this way. Maybe, yeah, maybe this way works better. Yeah, so we're gonna be on the 50-volt scale. Let's bring this down a little bit. Okay. Alright, so we got our scope set up. So now let's go to our scanner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna command this solenoid on and off. What I'm checking is I just want to make sure that we have our power supply to the connector and our signal, so we don't have hopefully we don't have an open wire or a shorted wire. I mean, if we did, it would have probably given us a open or a short to ground code. But anyways, so let's go to camshaft actuator test. Let's go to camshaft solenoid, and we're gonna energize the first solenoid first. So intake rocker arm solenoid valve 1, and let's hit continue. So as you can see, it's giving me two options here. I have to select either I want a low lift or high lift. I don't know what the default is. I think the default is the high lift, I guess. But I'm just gonna toggle between low and high, and then we will look at the signal on the lab scope. So I'm gonna bring up my lab scope here. The weird thing about this is that when you toggle on and off, the lab scope disappears. So I have to always come back here and hit this tab. So if we read, I mean, again, I'm back probing all the 3 wires on the solenoid. If we read the voltage here, we're all reading system voltage on all the wires. So voltage supply going to both solenoids, and then the same voltage is coming out on the signal wire here. So we most likely don't have an open solenoid. So now I'm gonna turn this on and off. I mean, I didn't keep track of my traces here, so I don't really know which one is which. I know one is supposed to be a constant power supply, and then the other 2 should be pulled to ground when I toggle between low and high, because this is a pull down design. So the computer sends ground to pull this voltage down so that the solenoid can get energized. So I'm gonna toggle between low and high right now. So right here, so as you guys can see, this signal here got pulled to ground, the green trace, okay? So, and this is, we're actually energizing rocker arm solenoid valve 1. So we're energizing valve 1, and as you can see, so power comes in. Hold on. Hold on, let me turn the other ones off just for now so you guys can see better. So right here, so power comes in. So power comes in, and then when I command the computer to go to toggle between low and high, so I think the default, I mean, I'm not sure about this one, I didn't even look this up, so I think the default is high. So, or it could be either low, I'm not sure. Anyways, so if let's just assume that the default is high. So if it's on high, when you pull it to, I mean, when you switch it to low lift, what happens is the voltage gets pulled to ground. I mean, you understand, you get the idea, right? The voltage gets pulled to ground, and then when you target back, what am I doing? Oops. Yeah. So right here. So when I targeted back to high, and then the voltage resumed, so it came back up. Okay. So we have our signal. So the signal is actually making it to the connector for this first solenoid. So now let's do the same thing on the other solenoid. So I'm gonna turn on the other channels. Okay, oh, I'm frozen here, so let's go live. Right here, so live. So we already verified the signal on the first solenoid. So now let's back out of here and go to the second solenoid. Remember, on the first solenoid, it was the green trace that was being pulled to ground. So now let's do the same. Let's bring the scope up. It's gonna disappear once I touch this. So watch that. Did you see that? So now, for the second solenoid, it is the yellow trace. You see that? Power comes in, gets pulled to ground. So it looks like the green, the blue trace is our constant power supply. The yellow trace is the signal to the second solenoid right here. And then the green trace is the signal for the first solenoid. So does that make sense? So our issue is most likely the solenoid itself, because we have good power and we have the signal making it to the solenoid. The issue is the solenoid, because these solenoids usually go bad. And then what happens is, with the ohm test, it can pass the ohm test. The resistance test can pass, but once the engine warms up, once it gets to operating temperature, the resistance can change in the solenoid. So that's why the ohm test is not really a valuable test. Right, so yeah, that's all. We checked both wires. So this test I did confirm the circuit integrity. So it means from the computer to the solenoid there isn't an open. Our wiring is good. So right now, what do you think is the issue? Well, the issue is the solenoid. It's getting power, it's getting the signal. So it's either the solenoid itself or a bad connector. I don't think the connector is the issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace this solenoid. Alright, so now I'm gonna remove this solenoid. It's got 3 bolts, 3 liter 10mm bolts. The good thing about this solenoid is that it's not really hard to remove. Alright, so I'm actually doing an ohm test on this solenoid here. This first solenoid is reading 13.7 ohms, and I got my test lead connected between the first pin and the center one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the one on this side, and I'm going to put it on the left side here. So same thing, here we're reading 13.5. Okay. So now I'm gonna bring, here's the new one from the dealer. Now I'm gonna bring my dealer one and compare. And I believe the resistance will probably be the same. The resistance on this one is slightly lower, 11.9, but nothing really significant because the spec is between 10 and 30 ohms. So right here. So now let's move this one to the right, and the other one on our multimeter is reading 12 ohms. So about 1 ohm or 1 ohm and a half of a difference between these two. Okay, but again, this is a test that I don't really trust. I just wanted to do that to show you guys. So what I did, I was connecting my multimeter between these pins. So this one with the center, and then the center with the one right here, for these two different solenoids. So now I'm gonna install our new solenoid. Alright, so now I'm gonna install this. I'm gonna install this new solenoid. Let me get my hands out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. And I guess the other test I could have done is I could have put an amp clamp around one of the wires of the solenoid to see the current flow, to see how much current that the solenoid was, how much current that it was drawing to come on. But again, these solenoids usually fail. If you only got that code and replaced the part, you could have gotten lucky, but that's not the right way of fixing vehicles. I mean, we don't guess, we test, and then we fix stuff. So I guess that's one test I could have done with the old solenoid. But I did the other test with the lab scope just to make sure that I was getting ground, you know, here on the connector. So just that checks the circuit integrity. Okay. Guess what? There is a little screen here that I forgot to put on. It actually comes with a new solenoid, but I guess when I was taking the solenoid out of the box, this little filter here, it's a screen that filters the oil that goes through the solenoid. So it fell, and I didn't realize that it wasn't on there. So I'm gonna have to remove this new solenoid so I can install this screen. So make sure you put this screen once you get your new solenoid. So right here, so this screen comes with a new solenoid, but I guess I didn't see it, so it goes right here. Yeah, right there. So make sure you install that, and then this one is gonna go like this. And I hope it doesn't fall, because you have to be careful not to drop it. Yeah, I guess the other thing we could do is we can remove the screen on the old solenoid and look at it and see if there's any contaminants there. What you want to see, what you don't want to see on this screen is any metal shavings. If you see any metal shavings on that screen, that's like a big no-no. It means you got something broken internally there, and that won't be good. All right, our new solenoid has been installed. Now the next question I might have is, we have a new solenoid installed, but how does the computer know if this solenoid has been turned on, or if there's oil flow between here and there? So guess what? This guy right here, this is the pressure switch. So when that solenoid over there turns on, this switch here, the oil pressure increases, so the signal on this switch changes. So the computer monitors the signal from this switch to know if the oil passage from here has opened to allow oil flow to the camshaft rocker arms. Okay, so I'm gonna put everything back together, and then we're gonna do our last test and go on a test drive and wrap this video up. Alright guys, so the vehicle is running. I've got everything back together. I just have to put that engine cover back on, and I feel comfortable with this. This is a fix. That solenoid over there was the issue. The only thing I have to do is take it on a test drive and come back, then call the customer to come and pick up his car. This is fixed, guys. What we could do, we can come back here to the scanner to see if we have any trouble codes in memory. I actually erased the code because with that code in memory, the computer would not allow me to turn on that other solenoid. So let's see if we have any trouble codes there. So no code, no present codes. All right, so now let's back out of here. I guess the other thing I could do, I can just look at some data. You know, I can go to data display, and our data will be right here. Camshaft rocker arm actuator data. I can go right here, and you know, oh, right here. So it's normally on high lift. And the other thing I can do is I can look at this pressure, the oil pressure sensor PID, while I'm turning this on and off. Everything looks good here, so I just have to go on a test drive and then once again confirm everything. So I'm gonna turn off the car so we can wrap up this video. Alright guys, so I guess that's it. I turned off the car. I'm gonna end this video here. If this is your first time, subscribe to my YouTube channel, K Diagnostics, and ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why. And if there's anything I missed, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. I mean, we learn every day. I learn every day. So maybe there's anything I didn't cover. Maybe there's something I didn't check. Please let me know. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. And once again, thanks for watching. See you next time. Alright guys, so I'm test driving the vehicle. I'm just showing you guys the footage here so you guys can see that our check engine light is still off. And this is a fix. So I've driven it for about 25 minutes now, and the check engine light didn't come on. So I actually went through different speeds. I was on the highway and I slowed down. I actually went to a stop sign, so that monitor should have run by now. So again, check engine light still off. So this is a fix. I know I ended this video in the shop already, but I just wanted to show you guys the dash here as I'm test driving this vehicle. So I hope you like this video. See you in the next one.